Please join me in reciting the Nembutsu.
Namo Amida, Namo Amida, Namo Amida, Namo. Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for watching the video this morning. Today's topic is OBON, body and mind. And it's brought to you with the letter E. Don't you know the letter E? In American English, we hardly ever use that sound by itself. Eh. We're much more used to having it as part of another sound. In English, a syllable can have two sounds and still be a single syllable. For example, say, they. It starts off with e and ends with e. They, they. And that causes us problems when we sometimes say the names of the sutras. In fact, most people at the temple, because of American English, will look at the title of Juseige and pronounce it like I just did, Juseige. But actually, the sei, S-E-I, in Roman characters, has two Japanese syllables, se, sei. And the last G-E does not have the I, the second Japanese syllable. It's ge, Juseige. It's hard, huh? Because it's not natural in English to go ahead and stop ourselves from completing what for us is the natural diphthong syllable, gay, say. But it's good to practice. And if it makes you slow yourself down just a little bit to think twice before you say Sanbutsuge or Juseige, or if you know the folk saying, Ichigo, Ichie, that's okay. But give it a try. Remember that today's message is brought to you with the letter E. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about OBON because the season is coming up. In fact, in just a day or two over a month, we'll be having our OBON service, and we hope in person, and we hope with a limited odori open to the temple, its members, families, and friends. We won't be promoting it as a public event so much, but it will mean that we'll be able to join together in person. And in contrast to last year, we'll have more dances. In fact, we have several dances new to us. They're not new dances, they're dances that have been around a really long time, but we get the chance to learn new ones. So that will be a good exercise of our gray matter. We really have to use our heads sometimes to get the steps right. Well, as you might suspect, the topic today, body and mind, is meant to affirm that Buddhism has always been a mind-body discipline. And that becomes so readily apparent in the popular idea or imagination of monks and nuns sitting in meditation, calming the mind, calming the body simultaneously. But it's no less true in our Jodo Shinshu tradition. And in common ways, we experience this whenever we offer incense at our home shrine or a butsudan if you have one, or we are able to attend one of the 2 services a month we're trying to do at the temple in this transitional period where COVID still exists in a challenging way. The physicality of the body part is not always top of mind, but it's there. Just as we began this service in Gasho, two hands together. One hand is you, one hand is the Buddha, one with Buddha. And then we bow, reciting. And we vocalize the name of Amida's call. You probably have heard some of our teachers remind us that that's Amida calling to us. You're not calling to Amida. We are helping Amida by calling out to ourselves from Amida, from the wisdom and compassion of the universe. It's a very physical activity, even with the mental component. We're using breath, we're using our mouths to go ahead and shape the words. We're bowing. And for that matter, just the simple act of bowing before the shrine or bowing before you enter the temple is a mind-body discipline. There's nothing egotistical about bowing in front of the shrine. There's nothing egotistical about bowing when you enter the temple. By humbling the ego slightly, it allows us to develop our spirituality. And of course, that's not just a mental exercise. So if we just sit and tell ourselves, I'm being humble, I'm not being egotistical, I won't get upset when things don't go my way, that only works so far. A deeper and sincere approach is mind and body. Because we sometimes think about the mind in the head, neck up, and the body neck down. But actually, our conscious mind is really just the top part. And much of our mind isn't even conscious. If we're sitting congratulating ourselves that we're not being egotistical or we're becoming one with Buddha, if it's all in your head, it's not even in your head. It's just in the top of your head. But if you breathe deeply, relax, so you put your hands together, gasho, and recite the Nembutsu. If you bow, if you sit mindfully, even in a pew listening to a Dharma talk, like you might do on a Sunday where we have a live service, it's mind and body. So when we enter the temple, it's not just the top of our heads. Entering the temple, it's our whole body. So if you think about it, these little rituals help us deepen our understanding, not just at a conscious level, not just top of mind, whole body. I think we've all had the experience of blurting out something we're not even sure why we said it, or acting out in a way we hadn't expected. And at least in my thinking, this is because those thoughts were not conscious, but they were there. So even though we might consider ourselves well-adjusted, psychologically stable, we may feel like we have great emotional intelligence. If we're dealing only with our conscious mind, it's not the whole kit and caboodle. It's not the whole mind, whole body. So therefore, these spiritual practices, simple ritual, and even mindless ritual, on the contrary, meant to be very deep mind-body participation, to go ahead and resolve our conflicts that are not in the daylight, that we don't think about in our conscious mind, at least in terms of recognition. We are not who we think we are if we limit ourselves to our conscious mind, because we're also our unconscious. Now take some of those concepts to understand why our Bon Odori is so important. Dramatically, the Bon Odori really is a mind-body discipline. I'm reminded that if you read some of the early stories of the historical Buddha, when people came to him with problems, very often, not always, but very often, he gave them something to do. In the OBON dance, simply by joining in a circle where we're all equal, by concentrating on the movements of the dance, which take our conscious minds off of ourselves, it's a spiritual training. We really do join with all of the other dancers in a less egotistical way. softening perhaps the holds of the ego. And also, we are doing something. We are helping resolve our own grief. I'm not saying to reach closure, but resolve our own grief, the loved ones who passed away, when we realize how much they've done for us, how we would not exist as who we are without their contributions in our lives, that they are part of you. You would not be who you are without them. So earlier I said we are not who we are, meaning that we are not who we consciously think we are. In some of our Dharma services, ministers will go ahead and help us understand the power of two, in that each generation going back, a required mother and a father. Each of us had two parents, each of us had four grandparents, each of us had 8 great-grandparents, and so on. So in that way, we're not who we are. We're not independent. So I encourage everyone to attend, if you can, if you feel comfortable, if you feel safe, the upcoming Odori practices. Not just because it's fun in its way, but because it's a deep spiritual activity for us. We're so lucky that the Jodo Shinshu tradition, once in Hawaii and the mainland, decided to take the responsibility of conducting what is usually left to the community outside the temple, maintain the OBON tradition. In Japan, the temple didn't have to keep that tradition alive. It's very popular. Here in the United States, we didn't have this leadership from our temples. We missed this opportunity. As we get closer to OBON, we'll probably be able to hear talks from our minister's assistants regarding the story behind OBON, involving one of the Buddha's disciples who suffered because he saw his mother suffering after she passed away in a Buddhist hell. And when the Buddha gave him, I won't go into details, but he gave him something to do. And once the monk was able to do this thing, his issues were more resolved. He saw in his mind, anyway, that his mother no longer suffered in a Buddhist hell. He danced for joy. So that spirit of remembering loved ones who passed away, expressing our joy that we can honor them and remember them, dancing the Bon Odori, is a great example of how Bon Odori is a mind-body spiritual practice. I don't remember the whole poem, but I'm suddenly reminded of the Yeats poem, in which he sets a scene in which we are so much at one with the dancers that we can't tell the dancer from the dance. That should be our experience when we dance the Bon Odori. We're not separate from the dance. We're not separate from each other. And we certainly aren't separate from all the ones who came before us, helped us to live our lives. I just want you to remember that today's message is brought to you by the letter E. Please join me. Gasho. Amo Amidabus. Amo Amidabus. Amo Amidabus. Thank you, everyone. Be safe. Stay well. Keep Buddha in your heart and mind. Take care. Bye-bye.